Dan Illman, Mike Beer, race number 7 on opening day at Santa Anita. Interesting prep for the Breeders' Cup Sprint. Let's throw up the field for the Eddie D. Now we're going 6.5 furlongs. Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint this year at 5/8 of a mile, Mike. Completely different ball game.
It is a completely different ballgame. You're right about that. This is still a pretty solid prep, though, for that race. I think there are some good horses in here, and as you can tell by the morning line, not necessarily that easy to get a handle on here. I mean, I think a lot of different horses could win.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Extremely competitive race. We take a look at the Timeform US pace projector. A bit of a surprise, a little blue bar scenario. Could favor horses on or near the early lead. I think Law-Abiding Citizen and Lieutenant Dan are the two right pace setters. I would expect Law-Abiding Citizen to make the lead. Boy, you got to give credit to Lieutenant Dan's connections. They've brought this horse back off a lengthy layoff in smoking form.
Yeah, he's looked really good winning both of his starts so far. And listen, when you go back and look at those two races, then it didn't feel like the paces were that demanding. He got right up on him, and he was an easy winner at the end. Might be a similar situation here.
Gregorian Chant is just a cool horse. He's a winner going 2 turns. They cut him all the way back earlier this year, and it seemed like they finally found his whole car. He reeled off 3 in a row at Santa Anita, going 3/4 of a mile. He didn't have a great situation in the Jaipur, chasing a blazing pace. And then last time out in the Green Flash handicap, 5/8 in a race with not a lot of pace. Situation's tough for him. He still ran well.
Yeah, I agree. I wonder how this race will set up for him. If nothing else, I do think the added distance of this race is really going to help this horse. As you mentioned, those first 3 sprint starts earlier this year, they were all at 6, and he ran really well, I thought, in all of those races. I really liked his performances there. He gets a big pass for me from that Jaipur, where it was surprising just to see him use his speed that day in a race that went to closers. So I think he ran better than it looks that day. I just don't think he had a fair chance last time, Dan. That pace was not fast. Lieutenant Dan and the runner-up went 1-2 around the track. This was the only horse making up ground.
The number 2 Caribou Club should not be taken lightly. This is a 10-time winner, a multiple graded stakes winner. It doesn't matter whether it's middle distances or sprints. He usually fires. Now, he hasn't been seen in 2.5 months. That last race, a 2-turn race at Gulfstream, did produce 3 next out winners. The runner-up coming back to score with a 95 buyer at Kentucky Downs.
Yeah, I agree with you that he shouldn't be taken lightly. I do think this is an okay distance for him. I mean, he does have, several races that would give him a real chance here. Obviously, he's very lightly raced since, running that sort of big figure back at the end of 2019. So things haven't gone great for him since then. But if he comes back running, this is a race where he can be competitive. I would want way more than the 6-1 morning line.
Here's a potential sleeper at a big price, the number 3 Misut. This is a horse that needs pace. He could be up against it from a pace standpoint, but he seems to fire each and every time. Let's go back to his last race. He was entered for 40 in his first start off an 8.5-month layoff. He fell far behind the leaders going 5.5 furlongs, and you kind of see him picking his way in behind horses, and he fires late.
Yeah, he makes up ground every step of the way here through this stretch, and he's doing it all while he has to sort of angle towards the outside. He keeps gaining. He's just going to come up short here. I like this performance, of course, recognizing that it was against weaker horses than this, but I think he deserves this step up in class. And I think that the added distance of this race actually helps this horse as well. I don't know if he quite classes up, Dan, and I don't know if he's going to get the right setup here, but I'm using this horse at a price.
I think this is a great move for the 4, Charmaine's Mia, mare taking on the boys, turning back in distance. Earlier in her career, she was all sprint, and she did well in those sprint distances. D'Amato took her over. She won a graded stakes sprinting. He gradually stretched her out. He won a couple of grade 2 races with her going a mile. The last 2 in against some tough horses, Maxim Rate, Princess Grace. I like her cutting back in distance. I think her speed plays well in here.
Yeah, I agree. I think she could go forward. We'll see how it works out with her cutting back here out of, 4 straight route races. So maybe that will dull her speed a little bit, but she could be forward. And obviously, since D'Amato's taken over, her figures have really improved. If she can run one of those races, she's going to be very tough in here.
Law-Abiding Citizen, graded stakes winner on dirt, graded stakes winner on turf, coming out of a good grade 1. The Bing Crosby on dirt, beaten less than a length by Dr. Scheibel. Mike, this horse didn't have the greatest trip that day. He's always been a rock-solid horse, and again, with his early speed, he could be in the mix. I would not be surprised if he drifts off that 5-1 morning line.
Yeah, and if he does drift, then I could see trying to use him in this race, but I think he would have to. I don't know if I would want 5-1 on this horse, Dan, but he's certainly, a viable alternative to the favorites in here. You have to go so far back to get to his really good turf races. That's what, bothered me more than anything else, but he's a player for sure at the right price.
Chaos Theory, the sixth, I think, has an upset chance in this race, although you could argue that 6.5 might actually be a little bit far for him. Claimed for 62.5, 3 starts back, not beaten far by Gregorian Chant in his first off the claim. The last race a throw out on dirt. This horse is a graded stakes winner last summer at Del Mar.
Yeah, I'm a fan of this horse, and I do think he has a chance in this race at what should be a very fair price in here. I don't mind DeSormo taking over at all. You have to patiently ride this horse and then try to work out a trip for him, and I think DeSormo's the right guy for that.
Calbred Lieutenant Dan. Again, what a job Steve Miotti and the connections have done. This horse missed over a year of racing, came back against open foes, 2 wins, including this race, the Grade 3 Green Flash. Both of the wins at Del Mar going 5/8 of a mile in the Green Flash. Lieutenant Dan went right to the pace, up on the pace, was pressured by the 7 throughout, and those two basically around 1-2 to the wire. You're going to see Gregorian Chant really the only horse making up significant ground for third.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this horse just ran really well. We already talked about it. I think he's had very comfortable trips in those 2 races, but he also really ran, and those races came back fast. He's going to stretch out to 6.5 here. I got to believe it's going to be tougher for him this time, Dan, but at the same time, he's probably the horse to beat in a lot of ways.
Whisper Not, the number 8. They asked a lot for him last time out on the 4-star Dave. It was his first start off a moderate-sized layoff. He pushed the pace. He tired. Now he cuts back, and I don't think the turnback's going to work really much against him. He has shown good speed in middle-distance races. He's a graded stakes winner at a mile, but I wonder how this race is going to suit from a pace standpoint.
Yeah, I didn't know if I necessarily felt like he was good enough. Maybe he is. I'm with you. I don't mind him cutting back in distance here. I wonder if he's good enough. I think this is a pretty good field, and I'm not sure of his overall quality.
Like the number 8, Whisper Not, the 9, Snapper Sinclair is going to be turning back in distance off of this victory at Kentucky Downs, where he absolutely loves it. A 1.70-yard race, a restricted stake, just a great spot that Asmussen found for Snapper Sinclair. He went right to the front. Leperoux is a genius on the lead with these horses. Snapper Sinclair's banked almost $2 million in his career, and he actually won a stakes race sprinting at Kentucky Downs as a 2-year-old. That race going 7/8 of a mile. Is this race too short for him?
Yeah, it might be. I mean, listen, they very rarely sprint this horse. As you mentioned, he was a stakes winner sprinting as a 2-year-old. That was also at Kentucky Downs, where he really likes it. We'll see, Dan. He's a really, really nice horse. I actually don't mind him cutting back, but he's another one in here. They made him 4-1 on the line. It's just not a price I would ever take.
Let's take a look at our top picks for the Grade 2 Eddie D Stakes. Mike, you're going with Gregorian Chant. The stretch out to 6.5, I think, is key for him. He ran so well at Santa Anita going 3/4. And I just think last time out, the way the race was run, not a ton of pace up front. 5/8 was too short.
I agree. He has an excuse last time. I also think he has an excuse 2 back in that Jaipur where he just got the wrong ride, in my opinion. So I think he's a little bit dirtied up. I think he fits this race much better with the added distance, and I think he's going to be tough in here.
Lieutenant Dan's won at this distance in the past, albeit against Calbreds. I think he can stretch his speed to 6.5, especially if the Timeform US pace projector proves correct, and there isn't a ton of hitting up front. He's just been so sharp. He's hard to ignore. 7.628 for me, 1.736 for Mike. The Grade 2 Eddie D, one of 3 graded stakes races on opening day Friday at Santa Anita. Best of luck.